The great hall stretched before Jake Morrison like a canyon made of metal and light. 12 different alien species sat in a perfect circle, each group separated by barriers that hummed with translation fields. Jake walked to the human section, his footsteps echoing in the vast space. Behind him, Dr. Lisa Chang carried a small device containing years of research. Captain Nathan Brooks followed, his military uniform crisp and clean. Jake had been Earth's top diplomat for 15 years. He had made peace between warring nations and solved trade disputes that seemed impossible. But sitting in this alien council chamber, he felt like a child asking adults for permission to play. High Counselor Vexithara of the Zenthari spoke first. Her voice came through the translator as cold and sharp as winter wind. The Zenthari looked like giant insects with silver skin and 4 arms. They had ruled this part of space for 3,000 years. "The young species requests our time again," Vexithara said. Her 4 eyes fixed on Jake with obvious boredom. "What do the humans want now?" Jake stood slowly. He had practiced this speech for months. "Honored counselors, we come seeking partnership. Earth offers to share our medical advances, our farming techniques, and our defensive technologies. In return, we ask for trade agreements and mutual protection pacts." The Corvan representative made a sound like grinding stone. The Corvans looked like walking lizards with thick scales and glowing eyes. Their leader, War Chief Gethak, had conquered 12 star systems in his lifetime. He turned his massive head toward Jake. "Protection from what, Softskin?" Gethak growled. "Your species has existed for less time than it takes our eggs to hatch. What could you possibly protect us from?" Dr. Chang stepped forward. She was small and quiet, but her mind held more knowledge about alien biology than anyone else on Earth. "If I may, counselors, our research shows that many of your worlds face food shortages. Human agricultural methods could increase crop yields by 40%. The Ethereal Collective's speaker floated in a bubble of blue light. The Ethereals had no solid bodies, existing as pure energy contained in environmental suits. Their voice sounded like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "The aggressive newcomers offer gifts with one hand while building weapons with the other," the Ethereal said. "We have observed human military expansion. Your species cannot be trusted." Captain Brooks tensed but remained silent. Jake had ordered him not to speak unless directly asked. The captain's jaw worked as he bit back angry words. Jake tried again. "Our expansion is purely defensive. We're exploring empty systems, not taking worlds from other species. Earth has never attacked another civilization." The hegemony's representative laughed. The sound was like metal scraping against metal. Commander Xyloth looked like a mechanical spider with too many legs and glowing red sensors for eyes. The hegemony was made up of machines that had long ago replaced their biological creators. "Never attack because never strong enough," Xyloth clicked. "Organics always fight when they grow powerful. It is the nature of flesh to be violent." Vexithara raised one of her 4 hands. The hall fell silent. "The human request trade agreements. What does your species offer that we cannot obtain elsewhere?" Lisa stepped forward again. "Our quantum computer designs are more efficient than anything currently used in the galaxy. Our medical nanobots can repair cellular damage that your current technology cannot touch. Our fusion reactors produce 30% more energy while using fewer rare elements." An alien from the collective of minds spoke up. They looked like living crystals that pulsed with inner light. "Impossible. Our technology has developed over 10,000 years. No species achieves such advances in mere centuries." Jake felt frustration building in his chest, but he kept his voice calm. "Perhaps our different approach to problem-solving offers new solutions to old challenges." War Chief Gethak slammed a clawed fist on his speaking platform. "Arrogance. Your species arrives yesterday and claims to surpass civilizations older than your sun. This is why young races must learn humility." The Twilight Empire's ambassador nodded agreement. The Twilight beings were tall and thin, with skin like dark glass and eyes that held swirling galaxies. They had once ruled half the galaxy before choosing isolation and contemplation. "The humans demonstrate the recklessness of youth," the ambassador said in a voice like distant thunder. They seek to run before learning to walk. Perhaps time and reflection would teach wisdom. Jake looked around the circle. Every alien face showed the same expression, though their features were completely different. They all looked at humans the way adults might look at troublesome children, not with hate, but with tired patience and mild annoyance. "We understand your concerns," Jake said carefully. "What would it take for our species to earn your trust?" Vexathera's four eyes gleamed. "Trust must be demonstrated through action. The Zenthari require proof of human sincerity." "What kind of proof?" "Your faster-than-light travel technology. Share the complete specifications with the Council as a gesture of good faith. Show that humans value cooperation over secrecy." Jake felt his blood turn cold. Earth's FTL drive was humanity's greatest achievement and their primary defense against hostile forces. Without it, Earth would be completely vulnerable. "That technology represents decades of research and development," Jake said slowly. "Surely there are other ways to demonstrate good faith." Commander Xyloth's sensors flashed brighter. The true nature emerges. Humans speak of cooperation but clutch their secrets close. This proves our assessment correct." The ethereal's voice chimed with what might have been amusement. "The aggressive newcomers reveal themselves. They offer partnership but demand to keep their weapons." Jake felt the weight of failure settling on his shoulders. Every diplomatic trick he had learned seemed useless here. These beings had made up their minds about humanity long before this meeting began. Lisa touched his arm gently. "Jake," she whispered, "maybe it's time." Nathan nodded slightly. His hand rested near his communicator, ready to signal the ships waiting beyond the system's edge. Jake looked around the circle one more time. 12 ancient civilizations stared back at him with mixture of boredom, suspicion, and condescension. They saw humans as dangerous children who needed firm guidance. They would never see Earth as an equal partner. He gathered his papers slowly and placed them in his case. The hall grew quiet as the aliens realized something was changing. "Honored counselors," Jake said, his voice carrying clearly through the translation fields. "We came here seeking partnership among equals. We offered our knowledge, our friendship, and our aid freely. In return, you have asked us to surrender our independence and accept the position of junior partners in your established order." He stood and looked each representative in the eye. "We thank you for this learning experience. You have taught us much about the galaxy and our place in it." Jake walked toward the exit, followed by Lisa and Nathan. Behind them, confused murmurs rose from the alien delegates. Vexathera called after them. "Where do you go, humans? The session is not concluded." Jake paused at the great doors and turned back one final time. "The session is concluded, High Counselor. We have received your answer, and now we give you ours. Humanity withdraws from all galactic affairs effective immediately. We thank you for your time and wish you well in your future endeavors." The doors closed behind them with a sound like thunder. In the hall, 12 ancient civilizations sat in stunned silence, unsure whether they had just won a great victory or made a terrible mistake. Admiral Kate Phillips stood on the bridge of the battleship New Horizon, watching as the largest evacuation in human history began. 3 months had passed since Jake Morrison walked out of the Galactic Council chambers. Now every human beyond Earth's solar system was coming home. Kate had spent 20 years building relationships with alien commanders. She had fought beside Corvan warriors and shared meals with ethereal energy beings. But orders were orders, and humanity was leaving the galaxy behind. "Admiral, the transport convoy from Kepler Station is approaching the jump point," reported Lieutenant Commander Sam Foster. His voice stayed steady, but Kate could see the sadness in his eyes. Sam had been born on Kepler Station and had never seen Earth. "Acknowledged. Signal them to proceed to Sol System immediately." On the main screen, Kate watched hundreds of ships carrying scientists, researchers, and their families away from the most advanced laboratory complex humanity had ever built. Kepler Station had been their window into the mysteries of the universe. Now it would become a ghost town floating in space. Commander Ben Taylor was the last person to leave Kepler Station. He walked through corridors that had once buzzed with activity from a dozen different species. Human scientists had worked alongside Twilight Empire researchers and collective of minds theorists. They had shared ideas and pushed the boundaries of knowledge together. Ben stopped at the quantum physics lab where Dr. Helen Morris had made her breakthrough discovery about faster-than-light communication. The equipment still hummed with power, but the researchers were gone. Helen had packed her personal items but left her life's work behind. "Computer, initiate lockdown protocol 7, Ben said to the empty lab. "Lockdown initiated. All research data has been transferred to secure Earth servers. Station will maintain minimal power for 60 days, then shut down completely." Ben touched the wall where a photo had hung showing human and alien scientists celebrating their joint discovery of a new type of energy field. The aliens had barely paid attention to the human contribution, assuming their own ancient wisdom was more valuable. Now they would have to continue the research without human insight. The transport ship carried Ben away from 15 years of his life. Behind him, Kepler Station's lights began dimming as automated systems prepared for abandonment. Captain Amy Foster commanded the evacuation of New Geneva, humanity's largest farming colony outside Earth's system. The planet had green fields stretching to the horizon and cities built around gardens and parks. 2 million humans called New Geneva home. Amy walked through the central market where farmers had sold their crops to visiting alien traders. The Corvan hegemony bought grain here to feed their warrior worlds. The Sakari coalition purchased fruits that didn't grow in their desert systems. Even the proud Xanthari had quietly bought New Geneva beef to supplement their protein farms. "Captain, the last civilian transport is loaded," reported Major Tony Clark. "Agricultural systems are set to automatic. They'll keep producing for exactly 60 days. Amy nodded. The farms would continue growing food, tended by machines and computer programs. But when those 60 days ended, the automated systems would shut down permanently. The fields would return to wilderness and the galaxy would lose its most productive agricultural world. Mrs. Carol Davis was one of the last colonists to board the transport ships. She had grown tomatoes on New Geneva for 30 years, selling them to alien merchants who praised their unique flavor. Carol's greenhouse produced varieties that couldn't be found anywhere else in the galaxy. "My whole life is in that soil," Carol told Amy as they walked to the landing pad. "My grandmother's seeds, my father's irrigation designs, everything our family built." "I know, Mrs. Davis, but Earth needs experienced farmers now. We're going to rebuild everything at home." Carol looked back at her greenhouse one last time. Inside, robotic systems would tend her plants for 2 more months. After that, 30 years of careful cultivation would simply end. Dr. Richard Stone finished uploading humanity's complete scientific database to the Galactic Information Network. As head of the Human Xenological Institute, Richard had studied alien cultures for decades. His research had helped prevent 3 different wars and solved countless diplomatic problems. "Why are you giving away our research?" asked his assistant, Dr. Jennifer Walsh. "The aliens never shared their knowledge freely with us." Richard smiled sadly. "Because we're better than that, Jennifer. Maybe someday they'll understand what they lost." The database contained everything humans had learned about alien biology, psychology, and technology. Detailed studies of Corvan military tactics, ethereal energy manipulation, and Xanthari social structures. Information that had taken centuries to gather was now freely available to anyone who wanted it, but the aliens would find gaps in the data. Richard had included all the facts, but removed the uniquely human interpretations that made the information useful. The aliens would have raw data, but not the insights that turned information into wisdom. Admiral Kate Phillips received reports from evacuation sites across the galaxy. Commander Lisa Murphy was bringing home the last human merchant ships from Sakari space. Her cargo vessel Freedom's Edge had connected 17 different star systems, carrying goods that no other species bothered to transport. "The Sakari are asking why we're leaving," Lisa reported over subspace radio. "They don't understand that their trade network is about to collapse." Kate understood. Human merchants had filled the gaps in galactic commerce. They carried small shipments that weren't profitable for larger alien companies. They learned the languages and customs needed to trade with species that barely tolerated each other. When the humans left, entire regions would lose their economic connections. Captain Bob Martinez was evacuating the deep space monitoring stations that humans had built along the galaxy's dangerous borders. These stations watched for threats like the Devourer machines and rogue AI swarms. The information they gathered had saved countless alien lives over the years. "Admiral, the Ethereal Collective is requesting that we leave our monitoring equipment operational," Bob reported. "Denied. All equipment returns to Earth." "Ma'am, these stations are the only early warning system for 3 sectors. Without them, the aliens will be blind to external threats." Kate felt a moment of doubt. Those monitoring stations had prevented disasters, but humanity could no longer be responsible for protecting people who didn't want their help. "Orders stand, Captain. Bring everything home." The Great Withdrawal continued for 6 more months. Human colonies that had taken generations to build were abandoned in weeks. Research stations that had expanded the boundaries of science went dark. Trade routes that had connected isolated worlds were left empty. The Zenthari made the first attempt to contact the withdrawing humans. High Counselor Vex Thara sent messages to human fleet commanders, offering to renegotiate the terms of galactic membership. Admiral Phillips read Vex Thara's message on her command screen. The Zenthari leader spoke of mutual respect and reconsideration of previous positions. She offered minor trade concessions and cultural exchange programs. Kate deleted the message without responding. Earth's orders were clear: no contact with galactic civilizations. Humanity was coming home. The last human outpost to close was the embassy on Central Station, the galaxy's diplomatic hub. Ambassador Jake Morrison sealed the doors personally, leaving behind offices where human diplomats had worked for 50 years to build bridges between Earth and the stars. Jake's final act was to post a simple message on the embassy's communication system. "Humanity thanks the Galactic Council for the opportunity to learn. We wish all species prosperity and peace. Please direct future communications to your local authorities, as Earth is no longer participating in galactic affairs." When the embassy doors closed, humanity's presence in galactic civilization officially ended. Behind those doors lay empty rooms that had once buzzed with activity, meeting halls where humans had tried to solve the galaxy's problems, archives containing decades of diplomatic correspondence. The galaxy continued turning as it always had. But something had changed. In research labs, alien scientists found gaps in their knowledge that human insight had filled. On trade worlds, merchants discovered routes that no longer connected. In military command centers, strategists realized their defense plans had relied on human intelligence networks that no longer existed. But these problems seemed small at first. The galaxy had survived for millions of years before humans arrived. Surely it could continue without them. The alien civilizations settled back into their ancient patterns, confident that they had handled the human problem wisely. They had put the aggressive newcomers in their place and maintained the stability that had served them well. They had no idea what was coming. War Chief Gathak stared at the report on his command screen and felt something he had never experienced before in 300 years of life. Fear. The agricultural world of Corvin Prime was dying, and his people were beginning to starve. "How much food do we have left?" Gathak asked his supply officer, Commander Vectar. 8 weeks at current rationing levels, my lord. Perhaps 10 if we reduce portions further." Gathak's clawed hands gripped his chair arms hard enough to leave marks in the metal. Corvin Prime had fed 40 billion warriors for 1,000 years. The great fungal forests that covered the planet had never failed before. But some disease had swept through the growing chambers, killing 90% of the crop. What about emergency supplies from other worlds? "Our other agricultural planets are barely feeding themselves, my lord. The colony worlds can spare nothing." Gathak remembered the surplus food shipments that had arrived regularly from the human world called New Geneva. Sweet fruits, protein-rich grains, and vegetables that grew better than anything in Corvin soil. His people had eaten human food for so long that they had forgotten it wasn't produced on Corvin worlds. "Contact the humans," Gathak ordered. "Offer them favorable trade terms for emergency food supplies. Commander Vectar looked uncomfortable. My lord, we sent 3 messages to human space last month. All were returned with the same automated response. Humanity is no longer participating in galactic affairs. Send Admiral Thekmore to the New Geneva system. If the humans won't talk, perhaps they will listen to gold and rare metals. Admiral Thekmore arrived at New Geneva 3 days later with a convoy of cargo ships filled with Corvan wealth. What he found made his warrior heart sink into his armored chest. The planet was empty. Thekmore walked through the abandoned cities, where 2 million humans had lived just months before. The buildings stood intact, but no lights shone in windows. No vehicles moved on roads. No voices called from markets that had once bustled with activity from dozens of worlds. The farms were the worst sight. Automated systems had tended the crops for exactly 60 days after the humans left, then shut down as promised. Now the carefully maintained fields were returning to wilderness. Weeds grew through irrigation channels. Fruit rotted on trees that no one harvested. Thekmore's technical team tried to restart the farming equipment. The computers would not respond to Corvan programming languages. The genetic locks on the seed storage required human biological signatures to open. Even the soil treatment systems had been designed to work only with human oversight. Can we force the systems to operate? Thekmore asked his chief engineer. Impossible, my lord. The humans integrated their technology at the molecular level. To restart their farms, we would need to rebuild the entire agricultural infrastructure from the ground up. That would take decades. Thekmore sent a desperate message to human space, offering to triple the payment for any food supplies Earth could provide. The response came back within hours. Humanity is no longer participating in galactic affairs. Please direct all inquiries to local authorities. On the Rim worlds, the Sakari Coalition faced a different crisis. Captain Zethra commanded the Pior trade station at Crossroads Hub, where shipping lanes from 17 different systems met. For the past month, cargo had been piling up with nowhere to go. The shipping schedules are completely broken, reported Trade Administrator Melthon. Half our regular cargo runs have stopped completely. Zethra studied the trade charts that had once shown a complex web of commerce connecting isolated worlds. Now the web had holes where human merchant ships used to travel. The humans had carried small shipments that weren't profitable for larger companies, but those small shipments had kept entire regions supplied with essential goods. What about the Freedom's Edge route? Zethra asked. That connected us to the mineral worlds in the outer reach. Captain Murphy's ship was the only vessel that served that route. No other company wants to deal with 17 different species and their various customs regulations. The outer reach worlds produced rare metals essential for Sakari technology. But they spoke different languages, used different currencies, and had cultural taboos that made trade difficult. Captain Lisa Murphy had spent years learning their ways and building relationships with local merchants. Without her, the trade route simply didn't work. Zethra tried to organize coalition ships to take over the human routes. The first attempt failed when the crew couldn't communicate with the mineral world's traders. They didn't know the proper greeting rituals or the gift exchanges that preceded serious business negotiations. The second attempt failed when coalition merchants tried to rush negotiations that the alien traders considered sacred ceremonies. 3 different species refused to deal with the coalition entirely, declaring them culturally insensitive. Within 6 months, the outer reach worlds had cut off all trade with coalition space. Essential minerals stopped flowing, and Sakari manufacturing began shutting down. Unemployment rose as factories closed for lack of raw materials. The ethereal collective discovered their own problems in the meditation worlds where their most advanced philosophers contemplated the nature of existence. Brother Lumara noticed the disturbances first during his daily cosmic awareness exercises. The harmony is broken, Lumara reported to the Circle of Thought. Our mental networks fluctuate with disturbing irregularities. Master Velthon had overseen the meditation worlds for 800 years. He had never experienced instability in the ethereal consciousness network. When did these disturbances begin? Approximately 7 months ago. They have grown worse each day. Velthon consulted the archived research of Dr. Paul Jenkins, the human psychologist who had studied ethereal mental patterns. Jenkins had published papers suggesting that human minds provided a stabilizing influence on ethereal telepathic networks. The research had been dismissed as primitive speculation by beings who had been telepathic for millions of years. Now Velthon read Jenkins' work. With growing alarm, the human scientist had identified specific neural patterns that acted like anchor points in the chaotic flow of telepathic energy. Without these anchor points, ethereal communication became unstable and eventually broke down entirely. "Can we create artificial anchor points?" Velthon asked the Circle of Thought. "We do not understand the mechanism by which human minds provide stability," Brother Lumara replied. Dr. Jenkins offered to conduct joint research, but we declined his proposal. The Ethereal Collective sent urgent messages to human space, requesting Dr. Jenkins' assistance with their communications crisis. Like all other messages, it returned with the standard automated response about humanity no longer participating in galactic affairs. High Counselor Vexithara of the Zenthari called an emergency session of the Galactic Council. 8 months after the humans left, problems were emerging across multiple star systems. She looked around the council chamber at the same alien representatives who had dismissed human offers of partnership. "The situation reports are disturbing," Vexthara announced. "Food shortages in Corvin space, trade disruptions in the Sakari coalition, communication problems among the ethereals." War Chief Gethak spoke first. "My people are rationing food while fertile worlds stand empty. The humans took their agricultural knowledge with them." Captain Zethra nodded agreement. "Our shipping networks are failing. The humans connected worlds that no one else bothered to serve." Commander Xyloth of the Hegemony made his mechanical, clicking sound. "These are temporary difficulties. Ancient civilizations survived before humans arrived." But Vexithara noticed something in the machine commander's tone. Even the confident Hegemony was experiencing problems. Their automated systems had relied on human-designed communication protocols that were now unavailable. "Perhaps we should attempt diplomatic contact with Earth," suggested the Twilight Empire's ambassador. "Surely reasonable terms can be negotiated." Vexithara had already tried. She had sent her best diplomats to the edge of human space with offers of trade agreements, technology exchanges, and cultural cooperation. Every message had been returned unopened with the same polite but final response. "Our humans were gone, and they were not coming back. We must adapt," Vexithara declared. "Our civilizations are millions of years old. We will solve these problems as we have solved all others." But privately, she wondered if that was true. The problems seemed small individually, but they were connected in ways that the ancient aliens had never noticed. The humans had been like a vital organ in the galactic body, and only now were the other species realizing how much they had depended on that organ to function. The Galactic Council session ended with promises to share resources and coordinate solutions, but each species returned to their own territory knowing that the galaxy had changed in ways they didn't fully understand. In the depths of space, automated monitoring stations that humans had built continued their silent watch for 3 more weeks. Then one by one they shut down as their power cells expired. The galaxy's early warning system went dark, leaving the ancient civilizations blind to threats they had never had to face alone. Something was moving in the dark between the stars, but no one was watching anymore. The first Devourer scout ships appeared on the edge of Corvin space like shadows made of metal and hunger. Admiral Thekmor watched them on his detection screens and felt his warrior blood turn cold. The machines moved in perfect formations that no living pilot could match. "How many ships?" Thekmor asked his sensor operator. 47 confirmed contacts, my lord. But they're unlike anything in our databases. The energy signatures are completely alien." Thekmor had fought in 100 battles across 50 star systems. He had seen every type of warship the galaxy could produce. But these vessels were different. They pulsed with dark energy and moved with purpose that seemed almost alive. "Signal the fleet. All ships to battle stations." The Corvin hegemony had ruled through military might for 3,000 years. Their warriors were the finest in the galaxy, trained from birth to fight and die for honor. But as Thekmor's ships engaged the Devourer scouts, he realized that Traditional courage meant nothing against these machines. The Devourers absorbed energy weapon hits and kept coming. They adapted to each attack, changing their hull configurations to deflect the next shot. When Corvin fighters tried to engage in close combat, the machines released swarms of smaller robots that tore through armor like paper. "My lord, we've lost 8 ships in the first engagement," reported Commander Vectar. "The enemy is learning our tactics faster than we can change them." Thekmor watched his finest pilots die as the machines turned their own weapons against them. The Devourers had somehow captured and reversed Corvin targeting systems. Every shot his ships fired was analyzed and countered within seconds. General Marcus Webb had written detailed reports about this exact scenario. The human military strategist had studied ancient records of Devourer attacks and developed defense plans specifically designed to counter their adaptive abilities. But those plans were locked away in human databases that the Corvin hegemony could no longer access. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it ended, 35 Corvin warships drifted in space as burning wreckage. The Devourer scouts had lost only 3 vessels, and those had been destroyed by ramming attacks that cost even more Corvin lives. High Counselor Vexithara received Thekmor's battle report with growing dread. The Zenthari had faced the Devourers once before, 8,000 years ago. That war had nearly destroyed galactic civilization until the machines mysteriously withdrew to the galactic core. "How many Devourer ships entered our space?" Vexithara asked her intelligence chief. 47 scouts, as reported, but deep space sensors detect larger formations moving toward our borders, possibly thousands of vessels. Vexithara accessed the sealed archives containing records of the ancient Devourer War. The machines had started exactly this way, sending small forces to test defenses and gather intelligence. Then they had returned in overwhelming numbers to consume entire star systems. "Activate the Galactic Defense Protocol," Vexithara ordered. "All member species must coordinate their fleets immediately." But the Galactic Defense Protocol had been written by General Marcus Webb during his years as humanity's military advisor to the Council. The complex document outlined coordination procedures, communication channels, and strategic responses that assumed human participation at every level. The Sakari Coalition received their defense orders 3 days late because the communication relays that connected their territory had been maintained by human technicians. Commander Orthvan tried to decode the tactical instructions, but they referenced human military terms that had no equivalent in Sakari language. "What does defensive depth coordination mean?" Orthvan asked his staff. "Unknown, Commander." The humans never translated their strategic concepts into our military doctrine. The ethereal collective couldn't coordinate their psychic defenses because their mental networks remained unstable without human anchor points. Master Velthon attempted to link the minds of ethereal admirals across 3 star systems, but the telepathic connection collapsed after 5 minutes. "We cannot maintain fleet communication for more than brief periods," Velthon reported to the Defense Council. "Our ships will have to fight independently. The Twilight Empire's ancient warships moved too slowly to match Devourer tactics. Their commanders had relied on human intelligence networks to provide early warning of enemy movements. Without advance notice, the stately Twilight vessels became easy targets for fast-moving machine raiders. Commander Rachel Stone had built the early warning system that should have detected the Devourer advance weeks before they reached inhabited systems. Her network of hidden sensor stations and robotic scouts had covered the dangerous regions where ancient threats might emerge. But Rachel was gone, and her sensor network had shut down months ago. The galaxy fought blind against an enemy that could see everything. The Devourer main fleet arrived 4 weeks after the first scouts. Dr. Kevin Adams had calculated that humanity would have needed exactly that much time to implement his recommended defense strategies. But Dr. Adams was back on Earth, and his sealed research files remained encrypted in human quantum code that no alien mathematician could break. War Chief Gethak led the final defense of Corvin Prime with every ship his people could put into space. The hegemony fleet had been weakened by food shortages that left warriors too hungry to fight effectively, but Corvin honor demanded they die defending their homeworld. "Today we face extinction," Gethak told his commanders. But we will show these machines what Corvin courage means. The battle for Corvin Prime lasted 3 days. Gethak's warriors fought with desperate bravery, ramming their ships into Devourer vessels when their weapons failed. They destroyed hundreds of machines, but thousands more kept coming. On the final day, Gethak watched from his flagship as Devourer ships began consuming his planet. The machines didn't just destroy cities, they broke down matter at the molecular level and rebuilt it into more Devourer units. Corvin Prime was being eaten alive. "My lord, we must retreat," urged Commander Vectar. "The planet is lost." Gethak looked at the world where his ancestors had lived for 3,000 years. The great fungal forests were disappearing as Devourer. Machines consumed everything organic. Soon there would be nothing left but more mechanical predators. "Signal all ships, full retreat to the secondary defense line." But the secondary defense line collapsed within hours. The Corvin military doctrine assumed they would have human intelligence support and coordination assistance. Without those advantages, their brave warriors were just individual targets for an enemy that learned from every encounter. The Sakari coalition lasted 2 weeks longer than the Corvin hegemony. Their scattered worlds tried to coordinate defense through the broken trade networks that had once connected them. But messages took days to travel routes that human merchants had completed in hours. Captain Zethra made the final transmission from Crossroads Hub as Devourer ships surrounded the trade station. "To anyone receiving this signal, the machines have taken everything. We had no early warning, no coordinated defense, no." The transmission ended in static as the hub's communication array was consumed by mechanical feeders. The ethereal collective's meditation worlds fell almost without resistance. The philosophical beings had never developed strong military forces, relying instead on diplomatic solutions and psychic defenses. But their damaged mental networks couldn't project the telepathic barriers that had once protected their worlds. "Master," Velthon sent a final message through the collapsing ethereal communication system. "We understand now what we have lost. The humans were not just another species. They were the immune system that kept us alive. The Twilight Empire managed to evacuate 3 of their core worlds before the Devourer advance reached them. Their ancient wisdom finally recognized the pattern that Dr. Kevin Adams had identified years earlier. The machines didn't just attack randomly, they targeted the connections between civilizations first, isolating each species before consuming them individually. The humans tried to warn us," the Twilight Ambassador told the Emergency Council session. Their research predicted this exact sequence of events. But warnings meant nothing now. Half the galaxy was dark, consumed by machines that grew stronger, with every world they devoured. The remaining species huddled in defended systems, knowing that their turn would come soon. High Counselor Vexithara stood in the empty council chamber, where Jake Morrison had walked away from galactic civilization 2 years earlier. The other seats were empty now. Some representatives had died defending their worlds. Others had fled with their surviving populations toward the galaxy's edge. Vexithera activated the emergency communication system and broadcast on all frequencies, hoping that someone in human space might hear her words. "To the people of Earth," she began, her voice steady despite the fear in her hearts. "We were wrong. We were foolish and proud and blind. The galaxy is falling to an enemy we cannot defeat, alone. If you can hear this message, please know that we finally understand what you offered us. We understand what we lost when we drove you away." The message traveled across space toward the silent barrier that surrounded human territory. But no response came back. Earth remained as quiet as it had been since the Great Withdrawal began. Outside the council chamber windows, Vexithara could see the lights of Admiral Helen Ross stood on the observation deck of the Earth Defense Station, watching the galaxy burn in the distance. 5 years had passed since Jake Morrison walked out of the Galactic Council chambers. Now the ancient civilizations that had dismissed humanity were fighting for their very survival. Helen's communication officer, Lieutenant Dan Cooper, approached with another batch of messages from alien governments. "Ma'am, we've received 47 distress calls in the past hour. The The Zenthari are offering us their entire scientific database in exchange for military assistance. Helen didn't look away from the viewport where distant stars flickered and died as devourer fleets consumed them. Standard response, Lieutenant. Humanity is no longer participating in galactic affairs. But Admiral, the Twilight Empire is offering to recognize Earth as the dominant galactic power. They're willing to surrender their sovereignty if we'll help them evacuate their remaining worlds. Helen finally turned from the window. Her face showed no emotion as she looked at the desperate alien messages. The same Twilight Empire that called us reckless children when we offered our defensive technologies. Lieutenant Cooper nodded uncomfortably. He had been young when humanity withdrew from galactic space, but he remembered the news broadcasts showing alien delegates dismissing human diplomats with barely concealed contempt. Send the standard response, Helen ordered. No exceptions. Captain Tony Martinez brought his reconnaissance ship Silent Observer back from another patrol along the edge of human space. His mission was simple: watch the galaxy collapse and report on devourer movements that might threaten Earth's security. Tony's latest report painted a picture of civilizational destruction that was almost impossible to believe. The Corvin hegemony was extinct, their warrior worlds consumed down to the core. The Sakari coalition existed only as refugee fleets fleeing toward the galactic rim. The ethereal collective had lost their physical forms entirely, existing now as desperate energy patterns begging for shelter. The Devourers have consumed 60% of inhabited galactic space, Tony reported to Admiral Ross. At current expansion rates, they'll reach the remaining civilizations within 8 months. Any signs they're moving toward our territory? Negative, Admiral. The machines seem to be avoiding human space entirely. They've established a clear boundary approximately 50 light-years from our furthest outpost. Admiral Ross studied the tactical display showing Devourer fleet movements. The machines were methodically consuming the galaxy, but they hadn't sent so much as a single scout ship toward Earth's defensive perimeter. It was as if they knew something the other aliens had forgotten. Dr. Susan Blake reviewed intercepted communications from the surviving alien governments in her laboratory deep beneath Geneva. As director of humanity's xenological research programs, Susan analyzed alien psychology and behavior patterns for the Earth Defense Council. The pattern is consistent across all species, Susan explained to the council via holographic link. Initial denial, followed by desperate bargaining, then acceptance of their situation. But the final stage is what interests me most. President Linda Carter, Earth's elected leader since the withdrawal began, leaned forward in her chair. What final stage, Doctor? Fear. Not just of the Devourers, but of us. The surviving aliens are beginning to understand what they lost when they drove humanity away. Susan displayed intercepted messages from Zenthari command ships fleeing their consumed homeworlds. The communications revealed a growing realization among alien survivors that humanity had been more than just another species seeking membership in galactic civilization. They're calling us the immune system, Susan continued. Some refugee groups are spreading theories that the galaxy was a living organism, and humanity was its natural defense against threats like the Devourers. High Counselor Vexithara sent her final message from the bridge of the Zenthari refugee ship Last Hope. Her proud species had been reduced to 3 million survivors scattered across a dozen overcrowded vessels. The great Zenthari empire that had ruled for 3,000 years was now just another group of homeless wanderers. To the humans of Earth, Vexithara began, her forearms trembling as she spoke to the camera. I am High Counselor Vexithara of the Zenthari. I was the one who demanded your technology as tribute. I was the one who called your species too young and aggressive to join civilized society. She paused, looking at the refugee children sleeping in the ship's corridors because there weren't enough quarters for everyone. I was wrong. We were all wrong. The galaxy wasn't a collection of separate civilizations competing for resources. It was a single organism, and you were its heart. When we cut you out, we killed ourselves. The message continued for 20 minutes as Vexithara described the collapse of galactic civilization. She spoke of worlds consumed, of ancient knowledge, lost forever, of species that had survived for millions of years dying in a matter of months. We understand now that you didn't need us, she concluded. We needed you, the galaxy needed you. Please remember us kindly when we are gone. The message ended with coordinates showing the Last Hope's position. 3 days later, Captain Martinez confirmed that those coordinates contained only empty space and debris. The Twilight Empire's final transmission came from Ambassador Keth Moran, the same being who had spoken of human recklessness during the council sessions. His ship drifted powerless in deep space, its ancient engines finally failing after carrying refugees for months. We spent 10,000 years believing that wisdom came from age, Keth Moran said into his failing communication system. We thought our ancient knowledge made us superior to younger races. But wisdom isn't about age. It's about adaptation, innovation, and the courage to change when change is needed. His voice grew weaker as the ship's power systems failed. You offered us the future and we clung to the past. Now the past is all we have left, and it isn't enough to keep us alive. Dr. Kevin Adams sat in his laboratory on Earth, reading reports about devourer technology that his reconnaissance teams had gathered from the ruins of alien worlds. The machines were exactly what he had predicted they would be, adaptive predators that grew stronger by consuming advanced civilizations. The irony is perfect, Kevin told his research team. The aliens' greatest strength became their greatest weakness. Their ancient knowledge and established technologies made them predictable. The devourers could study their patterns and counter them. His assistant, Dr. Mary Johnson, looked up from her analysis of captured devourer fragments. But why aren't they attacking us? We have advanced technology too. Kevin smiled grimly. Because our technology changes too fast for them to analyze. By the time they figured out how to counter our weapons, we'd already developed 3 new types. Human innovation moves faster than their adaptation. The truth was more complex than most humans realized. Earth's defensive systems weren't just advanced, they were deliberately chaotic. Human engineers had studied the devourer threat for decades and designed technologies that changed randomly, preventing the machines from establishing stable countermeasures. Captain Bob Martinez brought disturbing news from his monitoring stations at the edge of human space. Admiral, we're picking up massive energy signatures from the direction of the galactic core. The devourers appear to be building something. Admiral Ross studied the sensor readings that showed construction activity on a scale that dwarfed anything the galaxy had ever seen. The machines were dismantling entire star systems and rebuilding them into something else. Recommendations, Captain? Unknown, Admiral. But whatever they're building, it's using matter from 1,000 consumed worlds. The energy output is comparable to a small galaxy. President Carter called an emergency session of the Earth Defense Council. Representatives from every human world participated via quantum communication links as they discussed the galaxy's final crisis. The question before us is simple, Carter began. Do we maintain our isolation while the galaxy dies, or do we risk humanity's survival to fight an enemy that has already defeated everyone else? Admiral Ross presented the military assessment. Our defenses can hold against current devourer forces, but if they complete their core construction project, we may face something beyond our ability to stop. Dr. Blake offered the psychological analysis. The surviving aliens view us with a mixture of hope and terror. They see us as their last chance for survival, but they also fear we might be as ruthless as the machines that destroyed them. The debate continued for hours as humanity faced the choice that would define their species' future. They had the power to save what remained of galactic civilization, but doing so would mean abandoning the safety they had built through isolation. In the end, President Carter made the decision that would echo through history. We withdrew from the galaxy because they wouldn't accept us as partners, but that doesn't mean we have to watch them die. Captain Tony Martinez received new orders that night. For the first time in 5 years, human ships would cross the defensive perimeter that separated Earth from the dying galaxy. But they wouldn't be going as diplomats or traders. They were going as something the galaxy had never seen before. Humanity unleashed, angry, and finally ready to show the universe what they were truly capable of when pushed too far.